Hey, what's happening everyone? It's me, it's Jinsula. I hope you're having a good day and welcome to today's Pokemon Go video. Alright, so if you were to ask me what has motivated me to continue playing Pokemon Go for the past several years, I would tell you that it is one type of Pokemon, Shundos. Now, if you're someone who has been playing Pokemon Go for a while, you would know what a Shundo is, but if you just started playing the game, you're probably asking yourself what this Pokemon is and what the big deal is around it. Well, Shundos are basically perfect appraisal Pokemon that just so happen to be shiny. Yeah, that sounds incredibly rare because it is. It's really difficult to get yourself a Shundo, and there are players out there who will go several years before they get their first one. And I do think that because of that, they are the ultimate goal for pretty much every single Pokemon Go player. No matter how far along you are in the game, you will want to pick yourself up a Shundo. Considering that Pokemon Go is a collection-based game, these are basically the ultimate collector's item. Getting yourself a perfect IV is already really exciting, but to get yourself a perfect IV that is also a shiny, that is actually insane. I think a lot of players have always dreamed of getting Shundos of some of their favorite Pokemon, and yeah, I do think that is something that a lot of players share. Now, of course, over the years, there have been many discussions on how you could pick up a Shundo. There are certainly methods that will definitely get you a Shundo if you use them, but I do think there are other methods that a lot of players do not often discuss that I actually think are quite important for picking up these super rare Pokemon. I think one of the most commonly stated methods is of course lucky trades. That is probably going to be your best bet for getting yourself a Shundo. All you really need to do is keep up with your friends list, open gifts and send gifts every single day, hit best friends with a bunch of your friends, and then hopefully you'll trigger some lucky trades with them, and then you trade shinies with them and you'll have your chances at getting a Shundo. Lucky trades are probably the absolute best method because the IV floor for a lucky Pokemon is going to be incredibly high. So because of that, a lot of players utilize lucky trades for every single one of their Shundos, and they completely neglect everything else in the game that could produce a Shundo. And in my opinion, I think that is a mistake. If you really want yourself a whole collection of Shundos, then what you need to do is be extremely active in the game. Make sure you're fully researched with every single different event bonus, and you'll be able to utilize those bonuses to get yourself a whole bunch of Shundos. And that's really what I wanted to talk about here in this video. There are certain things you need to pay attention to when it comes to in-game events that's actually going to allow you to get yourself more Shundos. Take it from me, as someone who has close to 30 Shundos on their account and a whole bunch of different high IV shinies, some of these in-game events are how I were able to obtain them. So make sure you pay attention to this video if you want to get yourself a whole bunch of Shundos. Now when it comes to my collection of high IV shinies and Shundos, there are 3 different kinds of events where I was able to get pretty much most of them. And they're going to be limited research days, raid days, and community days. Now, the chances of you getting a Shundo is going to vary for each of these different events, but I do think that if you are aware of the shiny rates and how much you need to play, you may end up getting yourself a Shundo or at least a high IV shiny. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is going to be limited research days. Now, if you're a longtime viewer of my channel, you would know that I am a huge fan of these kind of events. And the reason for that is because on top of it being some of the most engaging gameplay in Pokemon Go, the chances of you getting a high IV shiny are actually incredibly high. The chances of you getting a shiny to begin with is going to be about 1 in 60, which means if you complete about 60 field research tasks, you'll be able to pick up a shiny. And they're going to have a high IV floor because if you complete a field research and get a Pokemon from it, that Pokemon is going to have an IV floor of 10 attack, 10 defense, and 10 health. That means the chances of you getting a 100% IV is actually pretty high. And then add on top of that, the chances of you getting a shiny, you're going to have a pretty decent chance at getting yourself a high IV shiny through these events. You're only going to have a window of about 3 hours with every single limited research day, but if you go to a high population area with hundreds of Pokestops, you're going to be able to complete a whole bunch of field research tasks, and your chances of getting a Shundo is going to be pretty high, much higher than you might be anticipating. Now, the next type of event that I wanted to talk about regarding picking up Shundos is going to be raid days, and this is probably where a lot of people pick up their first Shundo. The reason why I say that is because when it comes to raid battles, the IV floor is going to be similar similar to field research tasks. It's going to be 10 attack, 10 defense, and 10 health. So the chances of you getting a 100% IV is going to be pretty high, but on top of that, they actually have the absolute best shiny rates during raid days. In case you didn't know, the shiny rate for a raid day Pokemon is going to be 1 in 10. That is actually the best shiny rate among every single in-game event. So if you want to pick up a Shundo, raid days are probably your best bet outside of lucky trades. If you do a whole bunch of raids, you're gonna eventually get yourself a high IV shiny. At the very least, you might pick up yourself a 93% or a 96% shiny, but if you're lucky, you will definitely get yourself a Shundo. It's almost guaranteed if you complete hundreds of raids every single raid day. But of course, the one big caveat with raid days is that it requires a lot of spending money. So I think it's not going to be for everyone, but if you happen to be someone who is very comfortable spending a whole bunch of money for raid days, then yeah, it might be worth it because it's one of the best ways to pick up a Shundo. Take it from me, I actually picked up a Shundo or two as well as some high IV Pokemon specifically from raid days. It's actually a really great event for picking up Shundos. Now the third type of event where you could potentially pick up Shundos is of course going to be community days. Now the thing that community days are known for is of course the amount of shinies that you can get within a certain period of time. And the reason for that is because they have one Pokemon spawning for an entire duration of 3 hours, and they all have a boosted shiny rate. So yeah, these are 3 different kinds of events where you're going to have a much higher chance at getting yourself a Shundo. And if you're someone who has been playing Pokemon Go for a very long time, this is not going to be news to you. It's actually common knowledge for veteran players that these 3 types of events could get you a Shundo considering the higher shiny rates. But the thing that I wanted to highlight now at this point in the video is in regards to regular in-game events, because sometimes they will have different bonuses that players tend to neglect, but these bonuses are actually a great way for you to pick up Shundos. Take for example this current Halloween event that's happening in Pokemon GO. At the time that I'm recording this video, we have the Halloween event for 2024 kicked off. And there's actually a lot of different bonuses within this event where you could potentially pick yourself up a Shundo. So for example, in part 2 of the Halloween event this year, Niantic stated that there's going to be increased shiny chances for Pokemon that you get from 7km eggs. That means if you hatch a whole bunch of 7km eggs, you could potentially pick yourself up a Shundo. The reason why I say that is because egg-hatched Pokemon have a higher IV floor compared to wild-caught Pokemon, and if they have an increased shiny chance, that means your chances of getting yourself a Shundo or at least a high IV shiny is going to be incredibly high. So that is something you should definitely utilize. If you want yourself a Shundo, especially a costume Shundo from the Halloween event, then these are some of the things you need to take note of. Like, there's going to be increased shiny chances for specific Pokemon, and it's something that Niantic has been doing a lot more frequently as of late. So yeah, even though there's several different methods for getting yourself Shundos in Pokemon Go, I will say that you should never ignore in-game events. Not only are there in-game bonuses that give you a higher chance at getting Shundos, it's just something that is very common for players who do have Shundos. You just want to be as active as possible. If there is a raid day, do as many raids as you can. If there's a field research day, then complete as many field research tasks as you can. As long as you're extremely active, then eventually you may get yourself a Shundo. That is just something that I've always suggested to a lot of players who ask me how I got so many of my Shundos. This is an RNG based game. It all depends on how many times you roll the dice. If you get incredibly lucky, you will get yourself a Shundo, but it's all going to depend on how active you are. So I really do think that ultimately, if you want to get yourself Shundos in your collection, just be active. That's probably my best tip. But in any case, that's going to be it for this video. Let me know your thoughts regarding everything that I talked about down below. Is this something that you were already aware of? I'm sure there's plenty of you who already knew everything that I talked about in this video. But if there's something that you feel like you've been using to get Shundos, definitely share it in the comments below, because not only would I like to know, but I'm sure other players would like to know as well. So yeah, make sure you share your thoughts, and let's have a great discussion. And thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. My name is Count Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all later.